Hi there, I'm Lori Stotler. I'm your clerk treasurer here in the city of Janesville. This is the 2024 Municipal Board of Absentee Canvassers training. Thank you for joining me in order to get ready for a very busy day on November 5th. Every once in a while, I like to start out at the beginning. How did we get here to a central count? Well, years ago, the state allowed us to keep all of our absentees here at City Hall, properly organized by ward alphabetically, where we could hire a crew like you to come and process all absentee ballots, making sure that the polls can just focus on the in-person voters. This has helped us to be able to handle large volumes of absentees and get our results in at a reasonable time and accurately. So the city created Section 2.383 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Janesville. That allowed us to create a board of absentee ballot canvassers composed of the city clerk and two other qualified electors of the City of Janesville appointed by me for a term of 2 years. What we do then is appoint additional inspectors under state statute to assist in the board of the Board of Canvassers to help process loads of ballots. Every election is different. In April, we might have ballots, maybe 4,000, maybe 3,000 in an August primary. In a presidential, it is always a heavy number of voters coming through. In this particular election, we already have 10,000 ballots back in our hand. We're expecting another 1,000 voters in person every day, and then probably 3,000 more coming through the mail. So if you're doing the math with me, we could be upwards of 18,000 ballots on November 5th. State statutes continue to guide us on what we do and how we do it. You can look at Section 7.52 of the Wisconsin State Statutes if you want to learn more about that. There are specific duties outlined for the Board of Absentee Ballot Canvassers. We are to convene the board at 7 a.m. on Election Day to canvass all absentee ballots in accordance with Wisconsin State Statute 752. We are to canvass all absentee ballots received before 8 p.m. on Election Day. So yes, that's right. Even if it's in the mail on its way, if it's not in our hands by Election Day, it cannot be counted. So we have to have it by 8 p.m. on Election Day. We complete a log of all activity that occurred during the Board of Absentee Ballot Canvassers meeting, and then we report those results to the county clerk and the city clerk, which is posted online and then certified in the days that follow. The clerk treasurer has some specific duties as well. I post that we will be meeting 48 hours before the election. I appoint Board of Absentee Ballot Canvassers. We ensure that all members take an oath and are properly trained. We send a log of all the absentee ballots that have been received, that have been issued and received to the polling place. We will then bring the ballots to that location. And then afterwards, we will place on the internet the number of absentee ballots issued and the number of absentee ballots counted on Election Day. I also am responsible for providing you all of the tools and resources so you can be successful at your job. So if you ever don't have what you need, please let me know and I'll make sure you get it. The supplies that you will need, we use Badger Book units, which are electronic poll books to issue voter numbers to each individual absentee ballot. You'll get a sufficient large ballot envelope container prepared with a chain of custody of all the absentees. You'll also get empty bags that you will store processed absentee ballots in. You will get sufficient inspector statements. And so we will complete all the activities of the day and we will log anything unusual on that inspector statement. You will get envelopes to store all of the certificate envelopes, so the envelopes that the ballot comes in. Unfortunately, not every absentee ballot gets counted, and some will need to be rejected if they're missing a voter signature, a witness name, or a proper address. So we do have rejected absentee ballot envelopes for that. And then sometimes ballots come back and the machine won't read them, or the voter's intent is clear, but the machine can't tell it. So sometimes we have to remake ballots, and there will be envelopes to preserve the originals and then cast the remade ballot. And then tally sheets, because if there are write-ins and they are registered write-ins, we will need to place those on the tally sheet for the election tallies at the end. You'll get an election day manual for reference on how to do things. We use red pens for marking the poll list. We do everything in red pen, and that just kind of helps us make sure that stray marks on the ballot, stray marks that we do, are easier to depict differently from what the voter put on. Our remade ballots will use the Express Vote ADA machine. That helps us to make sure that when we remake the ballot, we've remade it accurately. You'll get some challenge documentation for any observers or workers who wish to challenge ballots. And then you will get a list of proof of residence documentation as well. We don't know how many people we're going to need for this election, and I am at 9 days to election day here. So what I usually do is I take the number of absentee ballots received divided by the number of registered voters, and that's going to tell me the percentage of voters who are voting by absentee. We feel that we can have 4 workers per 1,000 throughout the day. It's difficult, though, to know how many, but I do know that from a timing in our experience that 3 workers should easily process 75 ballots per hour. We had 8,000 by mail when I created this PowerPoint, and by the time I got to recording it, we had 10,000 ballots in hand. So these numbers are growing, and we need to make sure that we are ready for them. Voters attempting to return absentee ballots to a polling location other than the place designated for central count can do so. In fact, they can do so right up until 8 o'clock on election night. But they must be returned no later than 8 p.m. on the day of election, except absentee ballots sent to military electors, which follows a timeline set out by 6.22 of Wisconsin state statute. But for the purposes of this training, just know that everything has to be in our hands by 8 o'clock on election night. So we're going to have some different jobs here at our MBAC. I do call it MBAC a lot because it's a lot to say every time. We're going to have some certificate openers, and so we usually have a small hand opener for one individual ballot. But for an election such as this, we are going to use an electric envelope opener. So those folks will have to make sure that they tamp down every single envelope as not to slice any of the ballots there. We don't want to get into remaking. And so there will be people who are testing to make sure that each certificate envelope is complete before we open it, and then they will open the envelopes for the announcers and the Badger Book Tech to process. So the first announcer will announce they'll state the voter's name and address and wait for the Badger Book Tech to find the voter on the poll list. And then once we find it on the poll list, they will remove it from the envelope and hand the ballot only to a ballot tech on the other side of the table. The announcer will keep the envelope. The ballot tech will write the voter number on the ballot in its specific location and unfold it and place it in a pile. The Badger Book Tech assigns that voter number out loud. The ballot tech writes the number on red ink on the designated area. They flatten it in a pile. Once the ward is complete, that group of 3 confirms that the Badger Book voter numbers matches the total number of physical ballots. If that matches, you will complete a short little form and then take those ballots over to the tabulator tech, which is usually AJ. On your screen, you're looking at what we call the absentee ballot certificate envelope. At the top of the screen, you'll have a label that will show the voter's name, their ward. Then you will see a voter signature on the first arrow, a witness signature on the second arrow, the witness printed name on the third arrow, and the witness address on the fourth arrow just behind the cameo. There's also a little spot up top where you'll want to look for initials of either the clerk or in-person absentee workers. Every once in a while, voters need some assistance. Anybody who is assisted in marking their ballot or in the voting process has an assister, and that person needs to put their name there. So we are checking for all 7 of these items. The voter is not on the ineligible list. The envelope is opened. The envelope is resealed. The voter signature is missing. The witness signature is missing. The printed name is missing, or the address is missing. If any of that happens, if they're on the ineligible list, if the envelope is open, if it's been resealed. Now let me stop there on that resealed point. Every once in a while, something in the mail will get sliced open before it gets to the clerk's office when the mail is sorted on a daily basis. Or an overseas voter who sends their ballot back in a regular envelope and doesn't say ballot enclosed, we get them opened. But when we reseal it, the clerk's office marks opened and resealed by the clerk. Those are okay, but you still will want to note that on your incident log. If the voter signature is missing, the witness signature is missing, the printed name is missing, or the witness address is incomplete, then all of those are set aside, and then we wait till 8 o'clock to reject any absentee ballots because they can be cured. The voter and the witness can come back and fix that right up until 8 o'clock on election night. So if any of those 7 items are there, please do not open and do not issue a voter number. At 8 o'clock, we will mark a rejected ballot number on the envelope. We will write the reason for rejection, and then we will log it on the inspector statement. We're going to log the reason next to the voter's name, and then we have a rejected absentee envelope that I will keep in my office until I turn it over to the county clerk. But I like to take copies of this and make sure that I have this. This is a highly desirable document after the election. Whenever we reject an absentee ballot, people want to know why. So let's talk about what is a witness address. Anybody who's watched the news over the last few years knows that the witness address in the state of Wisconsin has been kind of a funny thing to look at. Does it need to have the state? Does it need to have the zip code? The state statute is silent on what is a witness address. So a witness address is sufficient if the witness's street number, street name, and municipality are present. In other words, no state, no zip code is required. That's okay if it does, though. Witness street number, street name, zip code, that's complete too. The witness's street number and street name are present and matches the street number and street name of the voter. Well, we can reasonably find that witness if that's on there. And then finally, the witness certification indicates that the witness address is the same as the voter's address with any or any combination of the following words: same, same address, same as voter, same as above, see above, ditto, or by using quotation marks that actually point to the voter above. So if the witness address does not match one of the 4 scenarios we just talked about in the last slide, then we have to consider this. Will the information on the certificate allow the municipal clerk to identify a location where the witness may be communicated with? If the information can be found on the face of the certification, we're going to consider it sufficient. Can an election official modify or add information to an absentee witness certification? No. Never write anything on the front of that except the voter number. We put everything else on a separate log and preserve our certificate envelopes 100%. So if the certificate envelope is found to be sufficient, you will likely receive it at your table already opened by the certifiers. We're going to carefully remove the ballot from the certificate envelope. Now, if you open it and it's accidentally been sliced, it's going to have to be issued a voter number and taken to the remade table. But once you take it out, no need to review anything on the ballot other than the clerk's initials and assigning a voter number on the back of the ballot. Taking your oath at the beginning of the day to uphold the Constitution and laws of the state means you would never intentionally look at how a voter voted, and you certainly would never tell anyone else how someone voted. Hey, look, I know that this is hard, and I know that some names are very familiar, especially your neighbors, your spouse, your elected officials, but you have taken an oath that you will make sure that you never talk about how someone voted. Upon accepting each absentee ballot, the Board of Absentee Ballot Canvassers shall mark in red the voter tally number on the back of the ballot and on the pre-printed poll list next to the elector's name. Beginning, you're going to start with number 1, and the Badger Book will assign it, and then throughout the ward, every ward starts with voter number 1 and goes to the end. That does make it easier for us to reconcile by ward on our first go-round. Examine the ballot to ensure that the following occurs. Only one ballot has been enclosed. On occasion, you will get that couple that thinks they can mail back both ballots in one envelope, and that's very unfortunate because multiple ballots in one envelope is an overvote and no votes are cast. The ballot that contains the initials of the issuing clerk. So on the back of that ballot or on the front of an express vote ballot should indicate initials of either myself, my deputy, or any deputized staff or individuals in my office. If they are not present, we simply just notate that on the inspector statement incident log. We will never ever punish a voter for the mistake of a clerk. Then you're going to flatten the ballot. So you'll be like reversing the ballot to remove any creases, and you'll lay it down on the table to be counted in the tabulator after we've reconciled the numbers. So this is the front and back of this elections ballot. On the left-hand side of the screen are some contests. There is no need for us to look at the front of the ballot when processing if it's got a complete certificate envelope. If it needs to be remade, the remake folks will look at it without the knowledge of the voter's name. They'll only have a voter number on it. So here we can preserve some of the anonymity of the voter when they vote by absentee. So your focus is only going to be in the last column on the back of the ballot. So as you can see there, you got that LRS equals clerk. That's me. Otherwise, there are 2 lines below that, and ABC equals a special voting deputy. He went to a nursing home. They always go in pairs, and so there should always be 2 sets of initials down below the clerk one. So it's going to be an either or. It's either issued by the clerk or issued by a special voting deputy. The voter number has to specifically go in the top box up in the upper right-hand corner of that ballot where it says voter number in this box always. The reason for that is in a public records request, we would always redact the voter's number to maintain that anonymity. When we place a ballot into the tabulator, it takes a picture of the ballot, and we never want that to be pushed on to somebody making an open records request. So we want to make sure that we're putting it in that box area at all times so that it makes redaction for the county clerk a little bit easier. So process does matter because the law under 7.52 sub 3 sub A specifically does talk about what to do after a certification has been properly executed. The unopened envelope is taken from a tray. You announce the name of the absentee elector, and then you check for a voter signature, a witness signature, the printed name, and the witness address. And that is all spelled out in law, so we aren't allowed to skip any steps. Once we know that's good, then we will open the envelope, we'll remove the ballot, we'll verify that the ballot is endorsed by the issuing clerk, and of course, per the last slide, if it's not, we're going to mark it on the incident log that the voter with the voter's name and the missing information. We're going to mark the poll list with a voter number. We're going to record the voter number on the back of the elector's ballot in that location we just discussed, and we're going to put it in the ready pile for the tabulator. In rare cases, proof of residence or photo ID are required in order to count an absentee ballot. Let's go over that now. Handling an absentee ballot when the proof of residence is required is a special circumstance. So if your voter list and the absentee certificate envelope have the notation from the municipal clerk, proof of residence or POR required, the inspector must first check to see if the voter included the required identifying document showing POR is in the certificate envelope, and that it's sufficient and determined by the procedures of processing ballots. So you'll open the absentee certificate envelope to check to see if the proof of residence is included in the envelope. For an absentee voter, a copy of any of the documentation listed in the Election Day Manual is sufficient proof of residence. We'll provide that to you to know what you're looking for. If the proof of residence is in the envelope, the election inspectors continue to process the absentee ballot following the procedures before. We record on the poll list the type of document provided. If the required proof is not in the envelope, the absentee ballot is considered a provisional ballot, and then we have to take a little different procedure. So we're going to make a notation on the voter registration indicating that the POR was not there. We're going to then put it in through the provisional voter process. And those are blue envelopes on a blue ledger. And so if that happens, get your chief or get me when I'm there, and I'll be there often, to walk you through the provisional voting process. Same thing with proof of identification or photo ID. If the absentee certificate envelope indicates that proof of identification or photo ID is needed, it is the responsibility of the election inspector to ensure that the elector included POI along with the absentee ballot or completed the appropriate certification before the ballot may be counted. So follow these procedures. Determine if the certification of authorized care facility representative is completed. If completed, continue to process the absentee ballot. So every once in a while, when we go out to a special voting facility, certain voters aren't able to get there. They might be ill that day. They might be at a doctor's appointment or a therapy session. And so representatives may have to complete their certificate envelope at another time and send them back to us. And that requires this type of documentation and often a photo ID. I don't believe that there's going to be any of those. We were able to do a really good job with our visits to the qualified facilities. So in this case, again, I'm just going to say get your chief inspector or myself, and we will help you. Again, process matters to the law. Is it opened? Is it resealed? Is it missing required information? We're going to use the rejected ballot log and the rejected ballot envelope to return to the clerk if any of those are there. But remember, wait till the end of night. So I always say wait until 8. So if you try to think of wait until 8 to reject at the end of the night, that allows for everybody to properly contact voters and witnesses to see if we can cure any of these ballots throughout the day. The voters' information is allowed to give out to observers who wish to contact their organizations to see if they can make that contact. So if the certificate envelope is found to be insufficient, so far we've talked about sufficient and the process for moving these ballots through, but if it's found to be insufficient, we don't open the envelope. We put the ballots aside by ward until 8. We wait till 8. Then at 8 o'clock, if the voter has not completed the deficiency, we mark it rejected ballot number, and we just start with 1 and go all the way through, writing the reason for the rejection on the envelope and on the inspector statement. We do not issue the elector a voter number. We list their name, identifying serial number of the rejected ballot, and the reasons for rejection on the inspector statement. And then we place the unopened certificate envelope in the certificate of rejected absentee ballot envelope. It's a brown carrier envelope. So we are in an age where people are challenging certain election things, and that's okay. But it's important that we know what can be challenged and what cannot be challenged. There was a statewide special election within the state this year where there was a group that came through and they wanted to challenge every single ballot that was being processed. And it was creating quite a disruption and a distraction, got the attention of the media and the state right away. So the state created a threefold brochure that kind of helped explain what can be challenged. And so any elector may challenge for the cause any person offering to vote whom the elector knows or suspects is not a qualified elector. Any eligible voter can challenge someone for cause. So a challenger must be over the age of 18, a U.S. citizen, a resident of Wisconsin, and eligible to vote in this election. So that means they don't need to be registered, but they have to be qualified. So they can't be adjudicated incompetent or currently serving a felon sentence or any other ineligible part that would not make them eligible to vote in Wisconsin. Those folks may challenge for only the following reasons. If they believe and have evidence that the elector is not a U.S. citizen. If they believe and have as evidence that the voter is not 18 years or older. If they believe and have evidence that they do not reside in the district where they are trying to vote. If they believe and have evidence that the voter has a felony conviction and is still serving their sentence. Remember, in the state of Wisconsin, you can have your voting rights restored after you have completed your sentence. You can be challenged if you have evidence and believe that they have been adjudicated incompetent by a judge with the loss of voting rights. And then finally, you can be challenged if you believe and have evidence that someone has already voted in the same election. So there are things that cannot be challenged. And so this is specifically important for you working in the MBAC. An elector cannot challenge an absentee certificate and application. So the envelopes cannot be challenged. Once the Board of Absentee Canvass makes a decision, that cannot be challenged. And they cannot challenge adherence to other voting requirements. So it's really important for us to remember that the certificate and application envelope cannot be challenged. So once we have separated the envelope, we're kind of back to processing now. Once we have separated the envelope from the ballot, where does that envelope go? Well, you have a used certificate envelope once we get to the end of the ward that we will put all of those in. Sometimes there's so many they won't fit in an envelope, and so we will put a rubber band around everything and put it in a box. Rejected absentee ballots and used certificates, they are required to be maintained by the reporting unit, and they're in a single rejected absentee ballot envelope. So two different envelopes, right? We have the used ones, the ones that we processed, and the rejected ones, the ones that we're not going to process. I've asked to start a little reconciliation tray. We've been getting to the end of election night at the Municipal Board of Absentee Canvassers, and if we're off by one ballot, that puts us off, and it could take several hours to find that one ballot. So if you can imagine having 18,000 ballots and being off by one, that's going to take us quite a ways down the path here. So every ward that we start, we're going to start with how many ballots are in the tray, and you're going to document that at the top. So we're starting in Ward 1 with a total of 337 ballots. How many did we open and assign a number to? So what's on the Badger book? The Badger book says 336. And then there's how many did the tabulator count? Well, the tabulator only counted 329. So as you can see, we've got some numbers that don't necessarily add up. But if we keep looking down, how many of those ballots did we have to take to the remake table? We had to take 6 over there. So if you take 329 plus 6, we have 335. So where is that missing ballot? Well, that missing ballot might be over in the reject pile. Okay, so we need to make sure that we know where all of the ballots are and what's going on. And if you are the person who did the opened and assigned, put your name there. If you are the person who put through the ballots through the tabulator, put your name under worker name. If you were the one who accepted 6 remakes, put your name there. So we also have a DS200, which is the regular tabulators that you find at the polls. Anytime we remake a ballot, those ballots are going to be processed through the DS200 and not be taken back over to the 450 tabulator. That's going to make sure that good ballots and remade ballots are kept separate for many reasons. One, so that we don't double count any ballots. 2, so that we can easily match up the original ballot to the remade ballot should we get to a recount or a situation in front of an attorney. So that's the reason why we're going to have these. We're going to do these little forms for every single ward. It has to be saved by the chief inspector. We're going to, when we get done with this, you're going to put this sheet with your total ballots and a rubber band around it and put in the bag, in a secured bag, and we're going to keep those together until the end of the night, and that's going to help us balance out. What you see on the screen now is a picture of the DS450 I just explained. It's a high-speed ballot counter. It sorts into 3 piles. So at the top there, just to the right where it says DS450, you'll see 3 trays. The top tray is going to be the ballots that the machine just counts, no problem. It understands everything going on. The second tray means it noticed that there were some write-ins there. And the third tray means can't read these ballots, they're rejected, let's take another look at them. Ward reports will then be rubber banded to the ballots and counted and bagged for balancing, not put into the Pendaflex folder that we've been using before. This is a little note for AJ that I want to, any reports that we print off this machine, I want to keep with the screen before with the form that we fill out. The machine might reject some ballots. If the ballots are rejected by the tabulator, poll workers should attempt to determine the voter's intent and remake the ballot if necessary, using the procedure for remaking the ballots. We'll go over that in another screen here. Remade ballots should be initialed by 2 members of the absentee board of canvassers. Remade ballots must be documented on the original ballots that were duplicated and the addition to the inspector statement. If the voter intent cannot be determined, the ballot should be tabulated using the override key. The tabulator will increment voter numbers by 1, and any vote that can be counted will be counted. So when we talk about how to do a remake and what we document with, let's take a look at some of the forms here on the next screen. So you'll have your original ballot on the left-hand side, and you'll have a blank duplicate ballot that you're using on the express vote on the right-hand side. You're going to check the reason at the top for why are you remaking this? Was it overvoted? Was the ballot damaged? The ballot is often damaged. That's often a reason. Other, you would write just to the right of other what that reason is. And then the 2 of you, starting with remake number 1, because that's what you're going to put on the log, is that remake number 1 for voter number 17, and then you're going to put your initials at the bottom, LT and JS. When you remake, you're going to remake it identically as you can as many contests as you can determine the voter's intent. Sometimes the voter will just put an X through the oval and the machine won't read it, so we have to remake it. We never write on an original ballot. Never make any marks on an original ballot. We always remake the original. And so it might be an X, it might be there's a coffee stain on it, it might be that it was damaged in transit. So any contest that we can determine, we will remake. When that duplicate ballot is done, then you do the same thing on the other side, but you put it to the right side in the official use. You check other, and then you put your 1 to the other side and you put your initials in. And then you compare it before you tabulate it, okay? This is what the remade ballot record will look like. So remake number 1, what ward was it? Sometimes the ballot is in the wrong ward. And when it comes to school district referendums, that's a big deal. We try very, very hard in our office to issue the right ballot. Once in a while, we get it wrong too. And so this is the log that we're going to fill out to be able to make sure that in that last screen, we have a third record to determine what has happened. And there will be one for every remake we do. This is the express vote machine that we will be remaking the ballot on. And then we will preserve the original ballot in the remade ballot envelope, record it on the remade ballot log, and then we'll place the remade express vote ballot into the tabulator, which you can see just above me in the camera there, which is our regular ballot tabulator. An express vote machine is just a ballot marker. It never tabulates any results. You might be noticing by now that we have a log for everything. This is your rejected ballot log. So anytime we reject a ballot, we will have what ward were they in, what is their name and address, and why did we reject it. And then the officials that rejected it will just put their initials down. So you can see here if there was a missing signature of the voter or the witness. Is there a missing witness address? Did the envelope show evidence of tampering? Was there a duplicate ballot or a vote detected? Is the voter deceased on or before election day? Because of course, we shouldn't be allowing deceased people to vote before or on election day. Now we send out absentee ballots on September 19th. People are going to pass away between September 19th and November 5th. We try our hardest to check the obits and keep all of that up to date, but when you're looking at 18,000 ballots, not always are we going to catch them. So this is an opportunity that if someone says, hey, I know this voter and I think they're deceased, we will utilize online resources to see if there's an obituary out there, and we will reject that ballot. If we know that they voted elsewhere, so let's say they cast an absentee ballot on September 25th and they were transferred out to a new location, we can reject the ballot here. They now have residence in their new state and they're going to vote there. We can reject that. Once again, I just want to kind of talk about the challenging a ballot. Any qualified elector may challenge an absentee ballot, but we need to understand that there is an 8-page process, an 8-page documentation that needs to be processed, and that there are specific reasons. So whenever you get into a challenge, if you're not 100% certain of the rules, please get your chief inspector. I do expect this to pop up during our training. So we are getting close to the finish line. I just wanted to talk about that one more time. So when it's 8 o'clock or later and we are all done, all absentee ballots must be in the hands of the MBAC by 8 o'clock on election day to be counted. At 8 o'clock, the polls are officially closed and no additional absentee ballots will be accepted. We will continue to process all absentees before beginning to close down and pack up. Totals are printed and write-ins are counted on 2 duplicate write-in forms. The totals of the absentee ballots are then transmitted to the county clerk. This is very important. In the April election, we used the DS450. That machine does not modem results to the county clerk. So as soon as we are done and we know that we balance, that stick has to be hand delivered to the county clerk. The DS200 data will be modemed over electronically. Completing and delivering the forms to the clerk. So you've done a lot of note taking throughout the day. We want to make sure that all gets back to the chief table because we need all incident logs, all reconciliation sheets, all chief inspector statements, the timesheets, the rejected ballots and the log, the remade ballots, and the envelope with the log. We need all of the ballots to be sealed in bags with required signatures by ward after they've been reconciled and balanced. We need the absentee certificate envelopes in ward by ward in boxes with required signatures. And then we need the machine's data via USB and machine keys in a security bag. So these machines will print out some tapes. There are referendums in the School District of Milton and the School District of Janesville. So we're going to need 2 zero tapes and 4 data tapes out of all the machines before we shut them down. Again, it's going to be 2 zero tapes, 1 for the county clerk, 1 for the city clerk, and 4 regular result tapes out of every machine before we shut down. So together we will make a difference, and together we will get it done. The AM shift starts at 6 o'clock in the first floor garage of City Hall at 18 North Jackson Street. Your PM shift starts at 1:30 and goes until close, and an all-day shift starts at 6 a.m. and goes till close. We are going to be counting at City Hall. There will be a break room, and your chief inspector will be in touch with you on whether or not you will be bringing in food, or sometimes you pitch in and order pizza for a meal. I'm not sure what your chief inspectors have in mind. That is up to them. And I will be there to help you get things started as soon as I get all other 10 polling places off the ground. We will need to stay on task. And because there will be so many of us in the room, please wear safe shoes, layered clothing, drink lots of water. Don't put any water on your table though. Please make sure that you have something with a top, a cap on it that you can put on the floor. We're going to take as many breaks as we can, but we do need to stay focused. We need to keep the small talk to a minimum. This is going to be a very, very busy, busy, busy day. I can't thank you enough for stepping forward to help me. You're getting me from my couch in my living room on a Sunday. It's been a long ride to get to this point. So the only way that we get to an election where it is trusted, it is accurate, and we don't have to do a recount is when we're all in this together. And so when I say thank you, I do mean it from the bottom of my heart. So thanks everyone, and I will see you on election day. If you have other questions about this presentation, shoot me an email or give me a phone call. My email is StottlerL, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, OTTLERL at janesvillewi.gov, and my direct line is 608-755-3072. And on a final note, if you think you can't complete your shift on election day, that you won't make it, I'm still recruiting people, and we're going to need all hands on deck. So please call me. The sooner the better, that we know that you won't be there. I do understand that people get sick and emergencies happen. So I just want to make sure that we're all ready to go. And okay, I'll stop. We'll see you on election day. Bye-bye.